All right, welcome back to another episode of the Psychopedia podcast. I'm your co-host, Hank Sinatra, here with my dapperific co-host.
Investigator Slater.
Was that your first dap?
It was. It was my first successful
Your first
one.
2 daps, really?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for teaching me.
Dap me up.
I mean, I see guys doing it all the time.
It's really fun.
If you don't get that pop sound when you dap,
Doesn't
do you
count.
do it over?
Depends on the context.
Okay.
So here's the thing. Getting a great dap is like what it used to be to hear a song on the radio.
Yes. Yes. You know when it hits.
So you're dapping people up, you're seeing your boys, you're throwing daps all over the place, and then you hit one that goes pop, and you're like, oh!
Yeah.
But when you're trying to teach someone how to do it, you just slap, 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 dap. Anyway, welcome to the Psychopedia podcast. If this is your first time listening, we normally don't talk about daps for this long. Also, welcome. If this is your 100th time listening, welcome home.
Freak.
I want to give a special early Patreon shout out to someone who I have promised to say, and it's so apropos.
Ooh.
I've promised to say it no less than 6 times. It is another welcomed home freak.
Oh, nice. Shout out to you.
Shout out to you, another welcomed home freak. And I apologize for being so late on it. And listen.
Just a quick little, if you guys want something done, message me.
Well, here you go. The message was on Psychopedia, you freak.
You must have opened it up, so it was marked as read. I didn't see it. Or not. I'm just playing. You're responsible. And
I'm just messing.
You're an equal player in this.
I'm just messing.
You're responsible. You're a good person. I'm sorry. I feel bad. Shit.
I don't even know what you're talking about. But I am, though. Man, am I a good person. So if you haven't yet, we would appreciate it. If you're listening, if you've been listening for a long time and you haven't subscribed, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Just do it.
Please and thank you. Say it nicely.
Please and thank you. And if you are just discovering us and this episode, which is you're about to hear, is so good that you don't want to miss another one, also subscribe. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, we will meet you there. Also, leave a rating, a review, share it with somebody. That's the most important thing. Share it with somebody else who's a little bit of a freak, who wants to laugh every once in a while and loves a good story.
Amen.
That's who we're going for. We are after the sophisticated,
deep feeler,
true crime fans.
Yeah.
Which is why you listening are so special, because you're already sophisticated and you have great taste in true crime podcasts.
Yeah, we're complimenting you guys because you all deserve it.
And if you love us and you're not getting enough of what you need here, boy, do I got a website for you.
It's so creepy.
Patreon.com/psychopediapod. You can do it on the app also. But yeah, over there you get tons of bonus episodes. You get at the Little Freaks level, you get 2 bonus episodes per month, True Crime, Tankopedia, Slaterpedia. At the Seaman Demons level, you get 5 bonus episodes per month. The same, and then we revisit old cases on something called Unhinged, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is the highlight of my week. And it's just a good time.
Remember when we were coming up with the name for Unhinged? Man, did we land on it.
We landed
because it is unhinged.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even think we realized what it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, no, I did.
You did? Well, I guess after that first episode where you dragged me through the Barbie maze.
That wasn't the first Patreon episode.
No, it was the first one I thought about hanging it up.
Really? You were like, I don't think this is such a great idea.
You were like, I've never seen you before.
Yeah. That was
manic
bad.
Or something. I don't know.
Listen, it was a combination of surprise, glee, being on vacation with my family,
Well, I get it.
And the primary factor, way too much caffeine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I was over-caffeinated. And so with that in mind, I'm going to read off a couple of Patreon names just to give people a little shout out because we like them and we are happy to have you there. Number 1, Glitter is the Devil's Semen.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
You liked it a little too much.
I felt it.
You liked it a little too much. By the way, I would love to do a Tankopedia on the glitter scandal.
What?
You need to know about that. I'll tell you about it.
So educate me.
Amy Hobson-Jones.
Hey, Amy.
We love a 3-named queen. Leslie Stokes.
Stoked to have you, Leslie.
Different strokes. Slankopedia.
Oh, I see what you did there, and I like it.
You may have just done something. You did something. Katie Langolier. Just another great name. Geriatric sloppy knots.
Geriatric sloppy knots.
Tomato shabonnet. Shabonnet. Shabonnet is one of them. Late night peanut butter. And armed with only a boomerang.
Oh, God, that was a great moment.
I have no idea what it's in reference
Come
to.
on.
I'm sorry. What is it? Tell me.
Lesbian vampire killer.
Yes.
So I started talking about something at Kangaroo Point.
Yes.
And I barely got the sentence out like a 5-year-old.
Yes.
And you came back, as you do, with a very funny quip, which was he couldn't walk home because he was in the kangaroo's pouch. I'm botching it. And then you go, armed only with a boomerang.
I do remember that. Thank you for calling that out. I appreciate that.
Very
funny. Love people's names. Lastly, before we go, we're leaving for Austin this weekend. We will be back by the time you hear this, but Investigator Slater did not want to bring sneakers because she didn't think they were going to fit in her suitcase. Okay. On the heels of that, I say, is there anything you want to do while we're down there in Austin that's like related to Austin? She goes, get a cowboy hat. I go,
a fancy cowboy hat is what I said.
Where are you going to put that?
To which I said,
on my head.
My noggin.
Noggin. To which I say, no, you're not.
Yes, I am. If you say you don't want me to, guess what's going to happen?
Well, it's not that I don't care.
Oh, okay.
I think you're asking for a nightmare.
No, I'll be good.
You ever try and take your jacket off on a plane and put it somewhere?
I'm a lot smaller than you. I'll put it by my feet.
What?
The cowboy hat.
You think you're going to stuff that thing under the seat in front of you?
Let me worry about where I stow my fashion accessories. No, I think
you're not thinking.
Okay.
Is what I think.
If I see an authentic cowboy hat in Austin that has some bling on it, maybe fringes, I'm getting it.
Okay. I'll document the trip home.
Great.
Yeah. As you struggle.
Great. Challenge accepted.
With your souvenir. All right. So without any further, yeehaw.
Howdy.
Let's get into this week's case, which you are very excited about.
I cannot wait to deliver this case.
I can't wait either.
The tracker swore an unbreakable oath to hunt down and kill every name on the target list or die trying. This list was no arbitrary collection of names, but rather a roster of 11 very specific, vile individuals, each implicated in monstrous operations that inflicted unimaginable pain and death upon the innocent.
Okay.
The tracker embarked on a relentless pursuit with unwavering resolve and employed astoundingly inventive and dangerous methods to uncover the truth that would lead to the names on that list. 10 of the 11 people would face the consequences of their crimes, and no amount of evasion would save them. The hunt was on, and the stakes were nothing less than justice itself. Now, this tracker was no 007 informant. She was a 56-year-old grieving mother named Miriam Elizabeth Rodríguez Martinez,
We love a four-named queen.
Who lost her 20-year-old daughter in 2014 to the ruthless violence of the Mexican drug cartel. To the very men whose names were on that list. Miriam was on a mission. Now she was hunting for retribution. This is the case of Miriam Rodríguez, a.k.a. Mother of Vengeance. I assure you, you will not believe what happens in this case. If they made a movie about it, I'd say it was too far-fetched, like too unbelievable to be real.
You said I was going to know what this was. I have no idea.
No, you won't know the case, but you'll know some peripheral information about it.
Ooh, okay, very good.
So I'd like to begin by setting the scene, a moment in time that will give you the key to understanding much about this case. Because to truly grasp the magnitude of what happened, you need to see it in context. The Gulf Cartel, or Cartel de Golfo, or the CDG, is a name that echoes through the violent history of Mexico's drug trade. Based in the border city of Matamoros, just across from Brownsville, Texas, the cartel's origins go back to Prohibition days when it smuggled not just drugs, but also whiskey and heroin into the U.S.
Okay, I have to qualify something. I know what Matamoros is.
I know.
The listeners have no idea.
I know. I was very clear to say you and only you and people,
who have seen the live show.
Who have seen the live show.
Matamoros is an element from the live show that we do when we go out on the road.
Right.
So if you want, one of them. Many. So if you want to know what Matamoros is, come see us live.
That's right. But it wasn't until the late 1990s, under the iron grip of Ociel Cardenas Guillen, that the Gulf Cartel truly rose to power, dominating Mexico's drug routes.
Why do you do this to yourself?
I don't know. Didn't you hear what I said when we started? I go, oh God, how am I going to pronounce this? How am I going to do this? I practiced, but I'm getting cold feet.
They don't have like domestic cases that you can sink into with like names like Jennifer and Huntington.
I mean, sure.
Locations.
But your girl likes to travel the globe for Psychopedia.
You are very Carmen Sandiego.
Yes. To secure his position, Cardenas Guillen needed muscle, and he found it in an unlikely group, a band of 34 former Mexican Special Force soldiers.
Wow.
These men, fiercely trained and very loyal, became the heart of a new force known as Los Zetas. Initially created as the cartel's enforcers, their role soon expanded and their brutality became legendary. As their power grew, so did their ambition, and they quickly began to carve out their own terrifying identity.
So 34 ex-special forces people he recruited to help him do his dirty work.
Correct.
That's a terrifying group of people.
Yeah, and then that new force became known as Los Zetas, which, by the way, begins with the letter Z, but it's pronounced the way I'm pronouncing it. Los Zetas, or the Zetas, were not content to stay on the sideline.
Niño, Spanish for the Niño. Why did you say that?
Because sometimes I'm going to say the Zetas.
Los Zetas, or the Zetas.
No, I'm thinking of Chris Farley. El Niño. Spanish for the Niño. Los Zetas were not content to stay on the sidelines forever. And after Cardenas Guillen's arrest in 2003 shifted the power dynamics, Los Zetas began to carve out their own violent path. By the mid-2000s, they were holding their ground in Nuevo Laredo, a city essential for smuggling cocaine into the U.S. and fighting off the Sinaloa cartel in a bloody battle for control.
Sinaloa cartel is huge, storied, and no joke.
I know. So Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel.
Joaquin Phoenix?
And one of the wealthiest criminals in history, amassing a fortune of $14 billion.
Oh, okay. So just a quick interjection.
Yeah.
The amount of money that these people make, that guy, I don't remember what you said, but Pablo Escobar, these guys, there was
El Chapo.
times they were, El Chapo is this guy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sí, señor.
Making like $100 million a day.
It's wild. It's wild.
The numbers are extravagant.
That's why they go for the throat if there is a threat to their pocketbook.
Yeah.
I said pocketbook so that I dated myself.
Hey, that's what you say.
Okay, listen, pop quiz.
Pocketbook quiz.
After one of his prison escapes, who did El Chapo meet up with in 2015 that ultimately led to his recapture in 2016?
Okay.
You know this? I feel like you know this.
I feel like I do too, but I've been wrong every other time.
A, actor Sean Penn. B, singer and songwriter Shakira. C, former U.S. President Bill Clinton.
Oh, I thought it was going to be his son.
Oh, no. Why, because of that
Penn,
White House picture?
What White House picture?
Oh, there was like a meme. I thought it was El Chapo standing in front of the White House.
There was something that happened with his son where his son kind of like fucked him up, I think.
Okay.
Sean Penn, Shakira, or Bill Clinton?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
This is a little bit of a sideline to the case, but I'm...
Sure. Sean Penn?
Yes. Yes, as a matter of fact, Sean Penn met with El Chapo in 2015 for a highly publicized interview that was ultimately published in Rolling Stone magazine. And it actually wound up leading to his recapture. We're not going to go into it now because it's not what this case is about, but it was interesting, so I put it in.
Very vaguely remember, and that is very interesting.
Okay, good. In the years that followed, Los Zetas built a reputation for unrestrained violence and extended their reach into human trafficking, extortion, and even stealing over $1 billion in oil from Pemex, Mexico's state-owned oil giant. In 2010, the group's brutal rise reached a turning point because that's when they officially and completely broke away from the Gulf Cartel. All right?
God.
With the death or arrest of many of its original members, Los Zetas expanded rapidly by pulling in former soldiers from Guatemala and other sources. The group's size became as obscure as its operations, ranging from a few dozen to possibly thousands of members. But one thing was clear. Their name became synonymous with terror, and their ruthless tactics left them in control of vital smuggling routes along Mexico's east coast. Los Zetas' violence tore through government buildings and imposed a brutal reign of terror, causing the town of San Fernando, Mexico, to stand as the symbol of Mexico's descent into ruin.
So they were going after government buildings also? Like
correct.
special forces guys. These are not like...
Now they're recruiting from everywhere.
Yeah, but their tactics are...
Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
And specialized.
Specialized.
Mass graves began to surface on the outskirts, spilling forth publicly hundreds of dismembered bodies.
Oh my God, dismembered too?
Corpses were left scattered on roadsides like grotesque, lifeless warnings. Kidnappings became so rampant that banks started offering loans just to cover the ransoms. San Fernando had transformed into an abyss of lawlessness and carnage that had absolutely overtaken the region.
Terrible. I cannot... I'm getting a little bit too hung up on what it must be to be a cartel member and the fear that you must walk around with.
Well, keep that in mind. Los Zetas essentially pioneered the use of murder as a form of messaging in Mexico, and few places had been more warped by their brutal ingenuity than San Fernando, because the town, formerly a cattle ranching town, is positioned at the crossroads of several highways leading into the United States, making it geographically cursed for that reason. And their ambitions didn't stop at unspeakable violence, total control, and crippling intimidation. By now, they weren't just a cartel. They were a full fucking force to be reckoned with, an organized army that wreaked havoc on the Mexican landscape.
Yeah.
Even after the death of their infamous leader, Heriberto Lazcano, in 2012, who was killed in a... Thank you so much. Who was killed in a dramatic firefight with Mexican Marines. Los Zetas continued to rule with a bloody fist. You may recall hearing about their involvement in the 2023 kidnapping of 4 American tourists in Matamoros, who were likely mistaken for Haitian drug smugglers, 2 of whom were killed, 2 of whom survived. But this just happened in 2023. Clearly, the legacy of this ruthless cartel continues to threaten citizens on both sides of the Mexican-American border. The FBI believes that Los Zetas control many American gangs as well, including the Mexican Mafia, the Texas Crime Syndicate, Hermanos Pistoleros Latinos, and MS-13.
MS-13.
That scares the crap out of me. How close we are to MS-13. I mean, we're here.
Yeah, it's a problem here.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if it's still a problem. I do remember there was a guy who was a busboy at this restaurant that I worked at. He was always a little off. Something was off about him. Years after he stopped working there, somebody saw him on a wanted poster. He was wanted for murder. He was an MS-13 member. So I don't know if he was doing it when he was a busboy there. Maybe that was his first job when he got to America. But he eventually wound up,
Wow.
linking up with those guys.
Without question, Los Zetas is considered the most brutal gang in the history of organized crime.
What?
Yep. According to George Grayson, an expert on Los Zetas and a professor of government at the College of William and Mary, quote, the Zetas were involved, or Los Zetas were involved in 20 different criminal activities: extortion, smuggling, torture, possible harvesting of human body parts. You name it, the Zetas did it. Sadism was their brand.
Oh my God.
End quote.
Imagine being like an actual criminal in America, like part of an organized crime family, and looking at them and being like, those guys are fucked up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
We do what we do, but fuck, those guys, you don't want to mess with them.
Right. Between 2010 and 2011, Los Zetas killed over 350 civilian farmers and workers in Mexico and Guatemala because they refused to join their group.
I was just going to ask why.
In 2010, they also killed 72 migrant workers in what is famously known as the San Fernando Massacre. In 2011, they kidnapped and butchered 192 people at La Jolla Ranch in the town. Mass graves were discovered so frequently that finding fewer than 20 bodies at a time barely made the news.
Oh my God.
Former military troops of Guatemala, known to the experts as the killing machines, were recruited by Los Zetas to set up camps around Mexico to train young recruits between the ages of 15 and 18. In terms of the timeline, this now brings us back to the story of Miriam Rodríguez and her daughter, Karen Alejandra Salinas Rodríguez. It was 2014, a particularly dark period in Mexico City. Los Zetas were abducting innocent civilians either for ransom to fund their war or to force them into their ranks. In some cases, they even orchestrated brutal death matches between captives, using them as nothing more than entertainment.
Like fighting?
Yeah.
Like they give them weapons?
Everything.
Oh, my God.
Fight to the death. So amidst this terrifying landscape, understandably, many people made a mass exodus the fuck out of there. In fact, more than 1/5 of the population had fled or disappeared from San Fernando following Los Zetas' takeover in 2010, including Miriam's son, Luis. So he got out of Dodge. But Karen, her daughter, stayed in San Fernando to finish school and to help run Miriam's small cowboy apparel shop called Rodeo Boots, as Miriam worked as a nanny in Texas during the week.
Did they make hats?
I mean, it's just actually really funny, right? Our pre-episode banter and this, right? It's a sign I'm going to be getting a cowboy hat.
Inter-episode banter.
Yeah, sorry, I meant like pre-case.
Oh, gotcha. Pre-Cana.
Life seemed to be moving forward, albeit at a distance, until everything changed in an instant. On January 24th, 2014, Miriam received a call at 4 a.m. from her eldest daughter, Azalea, a call that no parent should ever have to receive. Azalea informed Miriam that Karen had been kidnapped by Los Zetas and was being held for 1 million pesos or 77,000 US dollars in ransom.
Wow.
Then Miriam received a call from Karen herself, who sobbed into the phone,
Oh my God.
saying, quote, "If you pay them, they will let me go. If not, then I guess this is goodbye."
Oh my God.
You see, the day before, on January 23rd, as Karen prepared to merge into traffic, she was driving. 2 trucks pulled up on either side of her, preventing her from being able to drive on. Then armed men forced their way into her pickup truck and peeled off with Karen still inside the vehicle.
Were they going after the vehicle or her or
Nope.
both?
No, her.
Oh, okay.
They drove Karen to her family home in San Fernando, where she lived during the week, as I said, while her mother Miriam worked as a nanny in McAllen, Texas. As Karen lay on the living room floor, bound and gagged, a knock came at the door. It was her uncle's unsuspecting mechanic who had come by to work on the family truck.
God.
The kidnappers panicked and grabbed him too, and then fled.
Oh, so do you know why they targeted her?
My understanding is the kidnapping was happening
No rhyme or reason.
left, right, and center.
Just a person.
Exactly.
It wasn't because her mom owned a business or...
No. I mean, they could have known that there was a little bit of financial backing. Not a ton, but keep in mind too, as I said, banks were offering loans specifically to help cover ransoms.
You said that?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, yeah.
That's
And I say it
crazy.
again coming up because it's mind-blowing. But that's how pervasive this issue was.
Wow.
The weeks following Karen's abduction twisted into a nightmarish blur of relentless phone calls, chilling threats, and hollow promises. Each day felt like a suffocating continuation of terror as the Rodriguez family was dragged deeper and deeper into a web of fear. Desperate to secure Karen's release, Miriam, along with Karen's father, turned to a bank that specializes in issuing loans for such grim purposes in order to take out a loan to meet that first ransom demand. Yeah, that's the operative word. An unbearable weight of debt that mirrored the crushing despair of their situation.
Oh, my God.
Miriam reported the kidnapping to the authorities, but their response was tepid at best, as they offered little more than hollow reassurances.
Yeah, what can they do? This is going on every...
Doing nothing shouldn't be an option, but they did. You'll hear there were some players who got involved, but yeah, it was really.
If it's going on that much, and also there's potential consequences for you of your life being threatened or taken away from you because you act on a lead of a kidnapping, it's a horrific position.
Yes, it is. Desperation drove Miriam to make several ransom payments and to meet with various members of the cartel in person, each promising to help locate her daughter for exorbitant sums of money. One such individual was a man named Sama, who extracted thousands of dollars from Miriam before vanishing without a trace, leaving her empty-handed and, of course, still in the dark about her daughter's whereabouts.
That sucks.
I mean,
But
kicking someone while they're down, it's like preying upon this family over and over and over again.
well, that's the problem with, I mean, you want to get your daughter back, but that's the problem with like giving into the demands. They don't end.
It's an impossible situation.
So now it sounds like this is a combination of extortion and kidnapping.
Yeah. Yep.
Just ongoing.
Yes, at this point it's ongoing. But then, on the 1-month anniversary of Karen's disappearance, as the weight of failure and heartbreak settled heavily on her chest, Miriam woke up to an unbearable truth that she just felt in every fiber of her being. She turned to her daughter Azalea with her voice firm and clear without apparently displaying a shred of self-pity or anything like that, and she simply declared that Karen would likely never be coming home. Verbatim, Miriam carefully said, quote, "For the rest of my life, with the time that I have, I'm going to find the people who did this to my daughter, and I'm going to make them pay."
This should really be a movie.
I'm telling you, my heart was palpitating. During the research, I was like,
What a boss.
What? Wait, just wait.
Oh my God.
Miriam suddenly transformed from desperation to determination, from hopeful to vengeful. She declared that she would not rest until she found the people who had taken her daughter. She would hunt them down one by one, and she would take them out one by one, or die trying. Miriam stated, "I'm not afraid, I'm angry." Yes, queen.
Yes.
And with a firm resolution and hardened approach in place, Miriam officially launched her own investigation. She went all in, throwing herself into the hunt for 3 years, vowing to bring down the full force of justice on the 11 individuals responsible for Karen's abduction. Nothing, no obstacle, no setback would stop her from holding them accountable.
Now, where did these 11 people come from?
So my understanding...
People she met with?
Exactly.
Yeah.
She sourced the information.
But those are the people that took money from her.
Those are the people who took money from her, and then they... in an effort to go with this facade of we're here to help you, we just need the money to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what you need to know. These players takes the money, leaves, slips into the shadows of the night.
Zero recourse.
Zero.
Yeah. No accountability.
Miriam adopted multiple aliases and physical disguises, dyed her hair, and stealthily slipped into new identities as she somehow incredibly managed to infiltrate the criminal underworld.
The only thing that could make this better is if you told me that Juana Barraza appeared and benched one 225-pound man 30 times.
And then threw him out of a moving car. Yeah, that's funny. Miriam meticulously gathered evidence, pieced together fragments of clues, and pursued every lead with dogged determination.
Hell yeah.
Woof. Suspects were identified, and with quiet, seething grit, Miriam worked alongside the authorities whenever they decided to grace her with their involvement, to push them toward obtaining the justice her daughter so desperately deserved. Pop quiz.
Pop quizzy.
Between politicians, prosecutors, and police officers in Mexico, what % of homicides are solved each year collectively?
Okay.
A, fewer than 5%. B, between 7 and 10%. C, 16%.
Fewer than 5, 7 to 10, 17?
16.
16. Fewer than 5.
Yep.
Yeah, like way fewer.
Is that unbelievable? According to a 2023 New York Times article, it's fewer than 5%. Miriam's field work began officially after she spotted, this is bananas, after she spotted 2 young women in their mid-20s sitting on a bench in the Central Plaza of San Fernando. And the reason why these 2 women caught Miriam's attention wasn't because she recognized them. Rather, she recognized the laptop they were using.
Ooh.
It belonged to Karen.
Had a Psychopedia.
I thought about that. I'm like, people would know my laptop any day. Miriam immediately, she like eagle eyes though. Like, what? You're just moving along with life and you see these 2 women on your daughter's laptop and you notice?
PTSD, hypervigilance.
Unreal. Miriam immediately phoned a law enforcement agent known as Lieutenant Alex, who deployed a convoy of Marines into the plaza to question and apprehend the women.
Oh, he actually did something.
That's what I said. Sometimes yes, sometimes yes. Whose names were Margarita and Jessica. Meanwhile, at the same time, Miriam was dropped off in an open field near her home where she hid in an abandoned house, waiting for nightfall and for the Marines to pick her up with Margarita and Jessica in tow. They have a whole sting operation going here.
Yeah. I guess when they do get a little hit of something to go off of, they probably respond. The problem is, remember I told you that I asked a police officer friend of mine from the gym, like, what's up with the whole Les disappeared thing?
Yes.
He was like, we give every case a fair shake, as fair of a shake as you could possibly imagine, until we realize that there's just nothing to go off of.
Or until we receive a real lead,
well, no, that's after. So, like, the reason that some of these cases go cold is because they try, they investigate, they meet, they talk, whatever, and there's like, they get not a little bit, nothing.
Yeah.
So for them to get something as specific as two girls using her disappeared daughter's laptop, send in the fucking troops.
Yeah.
This is a big thing.
Absolutely. So as I said, Miriam is hiding in an open field near her house because the plan was for Miriam to join the Marines as well as the two women on a raid at a ranch known as the Basurero, or dump, where the Los Zetas allegedly operated and buried their bodies.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. You can't make fun of me.
What?
You looked like you were going to make fun of me, and then you realized I was right.
No, it's probably El Basureros, or instead of...
Actually, I thought it was Basura.
Basura, yeah.
Yeah, I said...
But that's garbage. Maybe
okay.
A basurera is a place where they take the garbage. And I thought it was a place that they hung out.
It's a collection, like a garbage collection.
But that's what I'm saying. It's called the dump, and I was like, they hang out in a place called the dump, and then I was like, no, it's actually so much worse than that.
Yes,
That's what my face was.
Okay. When the Marines arrived at the open field to pick up Miriam, this badass woman was wearing a Marine uniform in order to blend in with the squad and to evade the watchful eyes of Los Zetas looking out for her, like the ones who were on lookout, who might be able to then later identify her.
So she was in disguise because they knew who she was?
She didn't want them to know who she was.
Yeah.
And the plan worked, as Margarita and Jessica, who indeed worked for Los Zetas, led them all directly to this ranch.
Oh.
Miriam didn't ask how the Marines had confirmed the target, whether through threatening or torturing the women.
Yeah.
And frankly, she didn't care. All she cared about was bringing down her daughter's abductors and, with any remaining hope, finding Karen. When they arrived at this ranch, gunfire erupted immediately.
Wow.
Los Zetas were shooting at them and the Marines were shooting back. But when the shooting finally stopped, 4 bodies were laid out in the grass, 3 men and 1 woman. As the Marines searched the property, they found a few surviving kidnapping victims, one mumbling about a female Zeta who had been moments away from decapitating him when the raid began.
So that's why it makes sense to me that they sent the troops in, not for this one girl, although of course they want to find Karen, but like...
a bigger bust.
The source.
Exactly right.
Find these fuckers.
And they were in the process able to rescue other survivors.
Amazing.
But did you hear what I just said about how that one survivor said that he was minutes away? He overheard one of the female cartel members saying she was getting ready to decapitate him.
Oh, yeah.
This is real life.
I know, it's crazy. God.
So Miriam moved amongst them, struck by the gruesome scene at the ranch. Torture tools, bloody floors, and scattered IDs, some bearing photos of government workers who were abducted and killed. Her heart was racing, and then it sank as she realized that none of the people found alive or dead were Karen. However, amongst the debris, Miriam did find a scarf and a seat cushion that belonged to her daughter. A wave of relief and despair washed over Miriam as she realized that her daughter had indeed been inside that hellhole. But the fact that she was no longer being held there only deepened the agony as the brutal truth of Karen's likely fate settled heavily in Miriam's heart. In addition to the 4 people killed in the gunfight, the raid also uncovered the bodies of 3 additional women, one of whom was pregnant. Furious at this, the Marines threw Margarita and Jessica to the ground and demanded more answers. And sure enough, the women admitted to kidnapping those deceased women from the highway and executing them after their families failed to pay the ransoms.
Margarita and Jessica are most likely going to wind up getting killed also.
You ready, Tank?
I am.
In your third eye? The Marines listened in silence before forcing Jessica to her knees and executing her on the spot. So you were going to say that the cartel was going to take them out, right? Well,
Yeah.
The Marines did. Then they told Margarita to run and that if she made it to the tree line, she'd be free. She sprinted, but the Marines calmly lined up a shot and took her out.
Au revoir, Shoshana.
Oh my God. Inglorious bastard that you are.
I just watched it and
I
it's
know.
so at the top of my brain.
I know. It was not on topic, oddly.
Well, listen, Margarita, I don't feel bad for her. Sorry, she was kidnapping and killing people.
I know. It's kind of like what you said at the top of the episode, though. Like, what maybe was the alternative for them, right? The cartel, they were leaving dismembered corpses on the street to show you what happens. You don't say no. If we recruit you to be in our ranks or if we recruit you for ransom, those two things better happen or you're gone.
Yeah.
But even still, you might be gone anyway. Miriam was more determined than ever to find out what happened to Karen, who was neither dead nor alive. She still was just gone, trapped in a limbo of uncertainty that gnawed at Miriam's every waking moment.
Schrodinger's Karen.
What?
Schrodinger's Karen. Do you know what that is? You do, don't you?
I think I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Schrodinger's cat.
Yep.
Yes. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a quantum physics principle
Took me a minute, but nice.
if there's a cat in a box, the chances of it being dead or alive are 50, like totally equal until you open the box in which 50 goes to 100% and the other one goes to 0.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The pain of not knowing was unbearable, and Miriam would stop at nothing to fill that void with answers, no matter how dark those answers might be. Pop quiz.
Okay.
What is the term used to describe the bereavement of a disappeared family member?
What is the term used to describe the bereavement of a disappeared family member?
Yes.
Where the fuck did I pull that?
You always do. I'm impressed every single time. I'm just really into this case. A, ambiguous loss. B, displacement grief. C, unseen sorrow.
B.
No.
C?
Nope.
A?
Ambiguous loss is what it's referred to.
I figured there's no way you would have made 3 A's in a row be the answers.
Families of the missing often have no facts to clarify whether their loved one is alive or dead.
Yeah.
Or if dead, where the remains are located. And such loss is called ambiguous loss.
Yeah.
And with that sentiment, Miriam made her next move, which was to zero in on a particularly feared, brutal member of the cartel known as the Florist. For a year, she hunted the Florist, stalked his every move online, interrogated his associates, and even befriended unsuspecting relatives of his, all to extract any scrap of information that might lead her to his whereabouts. Miriam knew that the Florist sold, you guessed it, flowers on the street before joining Los Zetas cartel, and that he was now on the run and doing what he knew how to do, which was selling roses on the street.
Oh, wow.
But his return to simple civilian life would not serve to deter a mother on a mission who received a tip as to his whereabouts on Sunday morning, March 27th, 2016. Apparently, the Florist was selling flowers on the border. Miriam threw on a trench coat over her pajamas because the second she got the tip, she was out, and pulled on a baseball cap to cover her bright red hair, a color that she dyed specifically to distract her face, right? And to make herself less recognizable in that way.
Yeah.
Then she hid in wait near the Matamoros International Bridge, which links Matamoros, Mexico, and Brownsville, Texas, all while clutching a .38 pistol. Suddenly, the Florist spotted her.
Ooh.
By that point, Miriam had become a well-known figure in the community for reasons we're going to get into shortly, and for the obvious reasons. So in spite of her dyed hair or the baseball cap, her cover was blown.
It was her aura.
The bitch-ass florist bolted and darted down a narrow pedestrian path as the 56-year-old woman, without a second thought, tore after him. In a move that would make any seasoned criminal rethink their choices, Miriam closed the distance. With shocking speed, she grabbed the flowered, I combined flower and coward.
Wow.
I made up a word.
Wow.
By the shirt, yanked him down and slammed him to the ground. Pinning him there, she shoved her handgun into his back and coldly whispered, "If you move, I will shoot you." She held him there, relentless and unyielding, for nearly an hour until the police finally showed up to make the arrest.
She held him for the police?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Unreal. With the florist now plucked off her list. See what I did there?
Because they pluck flowers?
Yeah.
Oh, nice, yes.
Miriam moved on to conduct investigations on all the other names appearing on her target list. She spent hours sifting through Karen's Facebook profile to search for anything that might lead her closer to the truth. Then, one morning, stretched across her sofa in exhaustion, Miriam stumbled upon a photograph on Facebook. And who was tagged in it? None other than Sama, who I mentioned earlier. He was one of the cartel members who said for a certain amount of money, he would help her, met with her in person, took the money, and then disappeared.
Yeah.
So she's looking on Facebook and she sees his picture on Facebook.
Wow.
She instantly recognized this clean-shaven young face from the time that he ripped her off for thousands of dollars, making false promises to help locate her daughter. Beside him in the picture stood a young woman wearing an employee uniform to an ice cream shop called Helado Sultana, located 2 hours away in Ciudad Victoria.
That's nothing.
So Miriam began obsessively watching the ice cream shop, learning the woman's work schedule and waiting outside for hours at a time in the hope that Sama would appear. And sure enough, one day he did.
Nice.
Miriam followed him home and now had his address. Realizing that he might recognize her from the days when he was ripping her off and meeting with her, she dug out an old government uniform from her time at the health ministry and posed as a government official going door to door conducting a poll.
Oh.
One by one, she did go door to door conducting a mock survey at each home on the block. She asked about the number of children, adults, and seniors living there, skillfully weaving in enough questions to make her story believable. She took meticulous notes and kept files on everything and everyone, all in service of locating a single man, or a single name rather, Sama, born on December 23, 1994. Miriam presented her findings to every level of government, local, state, and federal, seeking their assistance now to make an arrest. But every single official door slammed in her face, except for one. One federal policeman, moved by Miriam's tenacity, agreed to help. When she spread those files across the table, I had never seen anything like it, the officer said, who remains on active duty as a commander, so has chosen to remain anonymous. He recalled the details, the information this woman had gathered all on her own was incredible. She had been shut down by every branch of government to help her track down the people who took her daughter. It was the greatest privilege of my career.
Wow.
By the time the arrest was finally issued, Sama had already fled town. Frustrated but undeterred, Miriam doubled down on her search and compiled a stack of photos showing Sama with various associates. By then, this is nuts, by sheer chance, Sama reappeared a month later. Listen to this. It was 6 p.m. on September 15th, 2014, which was El Grito, the nation's Independence Day. Miriam's son, Luis, was closing up the shop he owned in Ciudad Victoria when he noticed a young man browsing hats. Luis froze. Before him stood a tall, skinny man with slightly curly hair wearing jeans and a light blue shirt. It was Sama. Luis immediately called Miriam and followed Sama out of the store, carefully keeping track of his movements until Miriam and the police arrived. The officers found him, took Sama to the special unit for kidnapping at the state attorney general's office in the capital. Once in custody and under arrest, and during questioning, Sama spilled the beans on everything, which is bittersweet because he then uttered the words that Miriam both dreaded to hear but was also so desperate to know. He said, quote, "They told me they killed Karen in an awful way, but never gave me details of exactly how they'd done it." Hearing it directly from one of Los Zetas was devastating for Miriam. The pain tore through her like a physical wound, as if her very insides had been ripped out and left to rot. Losing a child was like losing yourself, the part of you that gave everything else meaning, where love flowed without limits, the very best part. Now that Miriam knew the truth about Karen, though, it brought her no peace after nearly a year of desperate searching. However, it was strangely comforting. This was the cruelty of a disappearance. By the end of Sama's interview, he went so far as to reveal names and locations of his fellow criminals. One of them was brought in, named Christian Jose Zapata Gonzalez. He was barely 18 years old, young even by cartel standards. Upon arrival at the precinct, the terrified teenager asked if he could see his mother and then announced that he was hungry. Pop quiz.
Let's go.
What happened next? A, the officer brought him a bag of chips, which Miriam smashed while brushing the crumbs onto the floor. B, Miriam told the teenager that he could eat if and only if he answered their questions to her liking. C, Miriam entered the room, offered him a piece of her fried chicken, and bought him a Coke.
C.
Yeah. She said, and I quote, "He's still a child, no matter what he did, and I am still a mother."
I am incredible.
You are. I'm talking about this insanely courageous woman.
She is as well, more so.
Just a smidge.
But in my arena where I operate. But it still feels like an ambiguous loss.
Yes,
right?
It absolutely does. And that's what I was saying, because that's how she described it, that it didn't bring her peace. It brought her comfort, knowing what happened, but it didn't bring her peace, and they still had no body.
I don't think anything's going to bring her peace.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people who have suffered that devastating, loss of a relative disappearing, finding a body does bring peace. It's closure.
Yeah.
It's knowing there's no suffering happening anymore. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if peace is the word, but closure is my understanding. So after Miriam gave him chicken and a Coke, Christian broke down. And incredibly, he agreed to take law enforcement to the ranch where Los Zetas allegedly operated and buried the innocent people that they killed. And sure enough, now 2 years after Karen's abduction and the beginning of Miriam's relentless search, Karen's remains, specifically a femur bone, was finally discovered in an unmarked grave. Now, initially, forensic agents claimed that Karen was not amongst the dozens of bodies that they'd identified at the ranch. But true to form, Miriam fought the government on its analysis, and the following year, a group of scientists confirmed that the piece of femur did in fact belong to Karen Rodríguez.
Wow.
Like, this woman has to fight every step of the way.
Yeah.
Knowing that her daughter was dead only cemented Miriam's resolve. She was more determined now than ever to find those responsible, tear them from their shadows, and bring them to justice. In 3 years that began a few weeks after Karen's abduction and carried on an entire year after her remains were discovered, Miriam Rodríguez captured nearly every living member of the crew that had abducted and killed her daughter.
Captured?
Yeah.
So when this all started out, I thought she was out there killing these people.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I think she would have if it had to be a choice, but she managed to get them arrested.
Well, that's so much better.
Totally.
Not because I think killing's bad in this scenario, but because now you can get more information and help other people potentially, like they did in the first raid.
For captured cartel members is like a far more frightening prospect than death.
Why?
Because I think they take you out so you don't leak information in like possibly brutal ways.
You get hunted, but you know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Oh.
You never know when it's going to happen. You just know that it will.
I told you about my friend that was in jail, right? That was being hunted?
No.
Yes, I did. He
So why ask?
Well, good question. It was a horrible accident. He hit somebody.
Oh, this story I know, but I didn't know he was being hunted.
He hits long
story short.
Short version. Slater-sized version of the story is he hit somebody on the way home. there was major construction going on. So there was all those big, giant, 3-foot round, 3-foot high orange cones. He thought he hit one of those, got to his house, saw blood on his car, went back. They called it a hit and run. It was, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? They arrested him, and the family, understandably, but also still kind of like overkill, just made his life absolute hell until he went to jail. And he went to jail because his father was, his father-in-law was a DA. So he went to jail because his father was a DA, and they were not doing any of that, going lenient on people at that time. When he got to jail, they found out that his father-in-law was a cop, and they hunted him for like legitimately 2 years.
Oh my Lord.
In the walls of the prison.
Yep.
And he said, I mean, he basically lost his mind. I feel so bad for that guy.
That's terrible.
Yeah, he didn't sleep for 2 years.
Yep. Yeah.
Terror.
So by the time Miriam located many of those criminals, they had attempted to start new lives. One as a born-again Christian, another as a taxi driver, another as a car salesman, even one as a babysitter.
Oh my God.
This is why you got to vet your babysitters, people.
They could be a former cartel member.
You never know.
Yeah.
But their past caught up to them. There would be no escaping the mother of vengeance.
Hell no.
At the same time, Miriam's fight for justice extended beyond her personal tragedy and her specific list of evildoers. She channeled her pain into action on behalf of others by founding an organization called Colectivo de Desaparecidos de San Fernando, or the Vanished Collective. I nailed it. I'm sorry, I nailed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, I was trying to translate it.
Oh, which is a support group for 600 other families searching for their missing loved ones.
Oh my God.
On March 22nd, 29 prisoners from the Ciudad Victoria prison escaped.
Oh.
Including some of those implicated in Karen's murder who Miriam helped put behind bars. At this point, Miriam was famous for what she'd done and was continuing to do, which made her obviously vulnerable. Despite repeated requests for adequate protection for Miriam and her family, local authorities failed to assign her armed guards. She knew the cartel would be coming after her. She knew her life was in imminent danger.
Yeah.
She knew it wasn't a matter of if, but when. And sadly, the when occurred on Mother's Day, May 10th, 2017, the day on which families of the disappeared marched to demand action from the authorities, and just weeks after she had chased down one of her last targets, Miriam Rodríguez, mother of vengeance, was fatally shot 12 times in front of her home. Her murder ignited a wave of outrage, grief, and protests that rippled across Mexico and beyond. Thousands rallied to honor her unwavering courage and selfless sacrifice. For many in the northern city of San Fernando, her story became a stark symbol of both the profound injustices plaguing Mexico and the extraordinary resilience of its people.
Yeah.
It speaks to the heart of a nation ravaged by violence and impunity, where in the face of government indifference, a grieving mother was forced to take matters into her own hands to uncover the truth about her daughter's disappearance and eventual murder.
Yeah.
In all, this extraordinary woman who transformed pain into purpose was instrumental in taking down 10 out of 11 people on her target list. Her campaign was remarkable, and her story reshaped San Fernando, if only for a time. Miriam's fierce fight became a beacon of hope for so many, while her tragic death sparked outrage and renewed determination. In her honor, the city installed a bronze plaque in the Central Plaza. Her son, Luis, stepped in to continue the work that she'd begun with the organization, keeping her legacy alive. Meanwhile, the authorities vowed to track down and bring her killers to justice. Miriam Rodríguez's life and death were a profound reflection of the human spirit's capacity to fight back against the crushing weight of corruption, violence, and indifference. Her journey wasn't one of heroism by choice, but of necessity, born out of a mother's relentless love for her child and an unshakable belief in justice. Her story is not one of victory in the conventional sense, for justice was not fully served and her killers still roam free. Yet Miriam's legacy endures and her fight continues in the hearts of those who refuse to accept the status quo. Miriam Rodríguez may have lost her life, but in the wake of her sacrifice, a truth remains. The forces that silence the vulnerable may have killed her, but they could never erase the power of her defiance or her legacy.
I love her.
Me too, so much, so hard.
She might be, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody that we've covered, might be my favorite person we've ever talked about.
I knew it would be. That's why I was busting to do this case. Me too.
What's the girl's name? Mary, the one that got her limbs chopped off and still...
Oh, Mary Vincent.
Mary Vincent.
Listen, every case...
Very different.
Exactly. And in the
It just reminds me of that.
Oh, absolutely. I know. Every time we can, we discuss the fight that people have.
Yeah.
It's extremely moving.
Maybe this is also like the father who took 30 years to find...
Kalinka, his daughter.
Kalinka.
That was one of my favorite episodes.
This might be... Not my I don't want to say my favorite because I don't want to undo anything I've ever said about episodes. But in recent memory, this is my favorite.
No, I'll take it. I'll take it. I absolutely was invigorated working on the script. A lot of times when I'm working on like the research, I go into like a tizzy. I have to touch grass.
Tizzy?
I have to tizzy, you freak.
Thanks, Dizzy.
Right. This one I was like hyped.
Yeah.
It was awful. Listen, I'm not minimizing what happened to any of the victims or Karen, of course. But since the focus was on Miriam,
yes,
I was absolutely invigorated doing the research.
Yeah.
I was so moved. I had constant goosebumps, truly.
What a fun time for you.
Yeah. I mean, listen, true crime in general is my jam.
Gets you going.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening and being a wonderful contributor. I was wondering if you could lead us now with a tanks titty.
A tanks tasm?
A tanks tizzy.
A tanks teta?
A tanks tata.
So this is based on a conversation I was having with a friend of mine today who, God, I don't even know where to begin. In terms of spiritual development, right? Most of the work comes from discarding things that no longer serve you. So something that worked in the past, let's say you grew up in a household where there was a lot of discomfort and you took to playing video games or overeating or whatever your thing was to try and escape either chaos or boredom or neglect or overstimulation, whatever, name it. So many different ways to grow up. People find all different ways to escape, right? So he was telling me about a picnic table that he had in his backyard that was just becoming like a real pain for him. Remember, like a red picnic table.
Like for kids?
Probably beat up. No, like a regular, like benches and wood and whatever. And he said it was just like destroyed. So he looked at it today, finally, and goes, I got to get rid of this thing. This doesn't like serve any purpose anymore. And I said, dude, what a great analogy. At one time, that picnic table served the purpose, but now it doesn't. And now instead of hanging, oh no, I know what I said to him. I said, not to sound weird, but there is like a spiritual relief that comes from, or emotional relief that comes from discarding things that you no longer need or no longer serve you.
Yes.
And man, it like made it very clear to me.
It's also making something clear to me.
What is it making clear to you?
I throw things away to a fault.
Yes.
Like way too soon. And I wonder if I'm just if I'm overcompensating. And I'm like, I got to clean up the mental baggage. So I'm just going to chuck everything in my toy bin over here.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, if you clean out the toy bin, you don't have to clean out your brain.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But that's your tidbit is making me see that.
There's a balance, though.
Yeah.
There's a balance. Like hoarders are obviously unwell people, right? My uncle, who I loved, was a bit of a hoarder, but he was also a little crazy. He had newspapers from like the 60s in his house. Not anything notable, just like a regular day.
Yeah.
A regular New York Times, like nothing even happened. And he just was like, I might need it one day.
Aww.
And that just goes for like behaviors, mindsets, perspectives, like these things that used to serve you. Maybe they don't serve you anymore. I'm not saying they do or they don't. I'm saying that if you feel like there's something that you've been doing that feels like is keeping you from becoming the person you think you can be or you want to be, maybe consider discarding it like a picnic table.
I love it.
Because at one point you were sitting there having a great time doing all kinds of activities with your family, eating. He said they'd used to like finger paint on it a lot.
Aw.
And now his kids are grown up and they don't need it. And now it's like an eyesore.
Yeah. Unless
You
it
know?
brought him any emotional comfort, like the memories. He can picture his kids sitting there. But if it's not,
Still
then-
have the memories.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Physical thing with a spiritual lesson
Love it.
for me. That is my titty
Fantastic titty.
For the
Very
day.
huge.
for the day.
Thank you.
What a great case.
Thank you.
I don't want it to end.
I know. It was made you feel stuff, right?
Made me feel a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm very intrigued by the cartels.
I know.
And how they operate. And I understand money makes the world go round. So if you're round, yes. So if you're
What?
making,
No.
well, I for some reason I thought the word was round.
You fancy.
Like I was in the South. You're making $100 million a day. You're able to afford some leniency with the law for sure. And you're making $100 million a day. You're able to recruit people who are willing to do some pretty crazy things to keep that money coming.
Mhm.
The food, the comfort, the whatever. Like you said, that's why if one thing goes wrong, they're like, cut that person's head off in front of their family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ruthless.
So thank you for doing all of that work
Truly my pleasure.
and presenting it in a way that was riveting, entertaining, and touching.
Man, thank you.
Whatever it was, what it was. That's what
Ruthless.
happened.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for listening. If you're still here, you're a real one, a real uno, depending on, if we're in Mexico today.
Very good.
And I want to say gracias para escucharnos
Muy bueno.
nosotros. That's not how you say it at all. It's the right word, but definitely the wrong order and everything. And we will see you guys at the next episode.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.